And we're here for our 12th stream. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us today. I will be our only usual host. So we have a lovely guest panel. We may even have one extra joining us in a bit. But how are you guys doing today? Frederick, you're a returning guest. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I was on the last week as well. I'm excited. I'm working on a commission here. I've got some comic art as well that needs a little bit of inking done. So I'm kind of working on these today. And yeah, just having a blast. It's hot and humid here in Quebec, but we're not supposed to complain about that. So we'll enjoy it while we got it.
All right. And Maji Chan, our first time guest. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm just hoping the internet holds out. Yesterday I couldn't stay in Wrangler stream because of it.
Oh boy, that would be a nightmare right there. And that's got to be a nightmare to deal with in general. But you are an author, correct? Like, or a first-time author working on your first novel.
I'm a hobbyist.
A hobbyist. That's quite the hobby you got there.
You mean you write for pleasure, Maji?
Kinda, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it's pleasure or torment at this point.
Really? Well, that's the editing process, right? You got your first draft done at least, and you're going through the process of spicing it up.
Oh yeah. So I got the first draft done. Got it all done. Went and reviewed it again. Hired King Bob to help me out, which I recommend if you need a grammar Nazi. It's awesome. And sometimes he just has a good idea. Like if he says, circle something, you could do this better. It doesn't sound right. Or not a full blown editor like Daniel, but he's still just good to have as a get you ready, right?
Yeah.
So we went through it, got ready, thought it was ready for beta reading. Send it out to betas. And turns out it was alpha ready, not beta. But that's all right. Now I'm sitting down with Daniel and doing the nitty gritty boot camp.
And what's the boot camp look like?
Okay, so there's a couple different ways Daniel does his stuff. If you're a less experienced author and have no clue what you're doing, I recommend the boot camp. He calls it coaching. I call it boot camp because everything you think you know about your story, he's going to rip it to shreds. Just like regular boot camp, he'll tear it to shreds, not to be malicious or anything, but so that you can make it better, so you could expand on your worlds, become the mini expert of your story on questions you never thought you would need to know from a fan's perspective. And then
I was going to say, because if he does it, sorry, didn't mean to stop.
No, you're good.
I was going to say it's better for the editor to rip it to shreds because the readers are going to do it. If there's no one who fixes it along the way, the readers are eventually going to point out, and they probably won't be as nice.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know my phone was on.
But and the readers probably won't come back around too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, first impressions.
And so yeah, that's what it is basically. And Frederick's right. I mean, it's night and day. Like if you take, because I have both copies, but if you take my first draft, which I thought was beta, but is what's called alpha, you combine it to what I have rewritten so far after being through boot camp. We're about halfway through now, but because we're doing a more intense version, because I didn't have a clue what I was doing, we're going line by line, kind of just by chapter, instead of overall. Because what Daniel normally does, from what I understand, is he'll read through the story when he's coaching and focus on areas that need work. But since, I don't have a clue what I'm doing, I'm not much of a writer. James has read enough of my stuff to know I'm not much of a writer. I get a lot more in-depth feel for it to try to get me so I can become a writer by the end of this.
Well, it's definitely a process, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. And in Daniel's past life, he actually knows a lot about English and all that fun stuff. So it pretty much feels like I'm going through like an English professor class. I mean, an English college class. If I had professors like him in college, hell, I would have done a hell of a lot better.
That's cool. That's cool.
Not bad, not bad. So, how much words have you written down? Like, what's how many words you got to edit there?
Last I checked, on the first alpha version, there was 79,000, but that's probably, well, we know that's changing because I added 2 more chapters already, and we're only halfway through the book.
2 extra chapters? That's a lot.
Well, what it was, so there was this chunk in the middle. So when I started, because like I said, I have no clue what I was doing. I knew the beginning and I knew the end. I didn't know how to get from point A to point C. So when I wrote the story, I kind of wrote it around those 2 narratives without any outline or structure for the center. And because of that, a couple of the chapters right in between, because the way my story is designed isn't a steady climax. It's like a roller coaster where it's got 2 peak climaxes and then kind of a calm down in the center. Not that it's boring, but it de-escalates and allows, okay, all this happened. We need a moment to breathe before the next thing. I don't know if I'm making sense in terms of structure.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that we were right there. The slope of that roller coaster was right there in the dead center where I didn't know what I was doing. And so with Daniel's help, like I said, he does the questioning. He does the drill sergeant. He does the drop and take out 30 as's. If you put as in a sentence too many times, he will make you take it out. But but he doesn't, like I said, he doesn't write it for you. He just helps you think of ways to fix it. Sometimes there's prompts, but not really. Most of the way, he's trying to get you to do it on your own. And with this one, I ended up scrapping. It's an important 2 chapters that were there, but the structure just didn't feel natural. In fact, that's what Kahuna, if you guys know who Ultimate Kahuna was, he was one of the original readers. But he said it didn't feel natural. Like the situation wouldn't work out that way. And after discussing it with Daniel, they were right. It was very dull. It was very boring. It felt like I hate to say this, it felt like an episode of Ahsoka where they're all standing around with their arms crossed. So, needless to say, I completely scrapped it, rewrote it, added another character, and changed a series of events, and it worked out for the better.
Nice. Yeah, I'm much more of a short story writer, so to edit that much and change that much, that seems quite daunting to me. So
yeah,
that takes some work.
It was supposed to be a short story.
I've heard that many times amongst my writer friends. Like,
it's always supposed to be a short story.
It was. The whole thing started. Okay, so I'm pretty sure everybody who watches this knows that it started out as a joke on a meme to troll Royce. Those who don't know Royce, A Drink with Crazy, look it up. He's awesome. But it started out as a gag, and then it was supposed to be 20,000 word limit. My prologue was the original story, and my prologue. I wrote the prologue, and I'm like, so what happens after this? And then I'm like, well, let me think on this. And then I started thinking more down the road, like, okay, so the prologue happened, all this happened, but what about the aftermath? And then the more I started asking about, okay, what would change here? How would this affect this? And I kept asking the what if question. And next thing I know, I'm writing a completely different story based on what was at the time the original story that I rewrote as a prologue because I was more fascinated with the journey after.
That sounds a lot like my process as well. Like, it turns out the comic I'm drawing today is kind of what happened in the first 4 pages of my first draft, and it blew up, it blew up, it blew up, and had to take a lot of stuff out too. What a journey.
Right. Anyways, what are you working on right now, Frederick? I see you're working on a very interesting, unique image.
Yeah, so this is a commission piece from Wrangler. So Frequency Studios has a character named Sabrina, and this is the first time she's being drawn. So I'm drawing the first instance of her. She's kind of a ninja assassin with an electrified technological whip kind of a thing. So a sci-fi electric whip. She's also got a Colt pistol. She's got lots of knives everywhere. Everywhere you can fit a knife, she's got one. And yeah, a nice little Tomb Raider haircut as well with a super
Imagine,
duper knife over
oh,
here.
sorry.
No, go right ahead.
Imagine a cyberpunk ninja, a trained assassin her entire life. That's what she is.
Oh, there you go. You're familiar with the character, right, Majin?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I was one of his beta readers for
Awesome.
the second book.
Awesome.
That definitely looks really cool there. Nice image.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, it didn't work out the first time around. Like,
Oh.
I've got the first sketch here. Like, I was trying to get it to fit, and I couldn't quite get the structure of it. And that's very important. Like, erased. I couldn't get it right. So I'm like, okay, we're going to need to have another crack at it because the foundation is the most important. Like, no sense in starting to do like the paint job if your house is not holding up. You know what I mean? So once you got the good structure with dynamic pose, then it gets a lot easier to do all the details. And I'm also doing some blue line, which I don't always do. So it's kind of nice to go back to this technique a little bit. You guys are familiar with blue line? I don't know.
I am not actually. I'm quite the novice when it comes to
illustration. It's they call it non-photo blue, so it doesn't get picked up easily with the scanner. So it's easier when your art is all inked up. It's easier with the high contrast to make the blue disappear. Whereas when you're working with pencils, your little sketch lines with pencils, sometimes they're hard to erase, and you'll have little traces of some pencil lines even after the inking process. So blue line allows you to have like a cleaner final version of your ink stuff once you scan it.
Oh, okay. The science behind the illustrations there, huh?
Yeah, so when I do pages, you can see there's like the blue line markers on the side to show you where you can cut for panels. You can obviously do your own here, but you got the little guide marks where the what do you call it, the bleed is going to be, so the full bleed. So if you want to draw past where the printer is going to cut, okay, well, this is the line. So everything I do past this line is kind of just in case the page gets shifted on the printer or something. So useful guides to have.
Oh, really cool, really cool. And you've yet to like fully write this story, right? It's like more images than prose right now.
I wrote a first draft, which I wanted to publish in Anvil magazine, but it was like a little bit too large. Like, it turned out it was my first draft that I was going for the current comic. Then I turned that into a second draft, which is the process I was telling you earlier, like taking the first 4 pages of my draft and saying, okay, what if I take this scene and this thing here and develop it? Let us learn to get to know the characters a little bit instead of trying to stuff so many plot points in the same story. And comics are, I mean, it's very short if you compare comics to a short story, because you got 24 pages in your typical floppy comic, and that goes by really quickly, man. It's almost like 1 minute worth of read, so it's probably close to the equivalent of a half-hour show if you think about it. So you can't put a whole lot in there. So I try to balance it. one thing I knew I wanted in there is a nice, good action scene. Like I wanted there to be like, nice, beautiful shots, obviously, because I'm writing to draw it. So I'm going to write myself some nice shots in there. But to make sure I have a nice, good action scene as well as developing the characters, trying to find balance. And I'm not used to writing. So I'm taking a lot of guesses, educated guesses. And of course, I've got a lot of beta readers to help point out the stuff that doesn't work or, signal out the questions, the things that are not obvious. So I took the second draft, I edited it, I was going to say rewrote it into a third one, but when I went from second to third, I went straight to pictures because I was like having writer's block to edit my second draft. So I just started doing it in thumbnails, doing it, which is how Mike Barron kind of does his scripts. So I was watching one of his videos and was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it got me out of the block. And I consider that my third draft, but I don't have I didn't rework the text bubbles, so the speech bubbles and all that. So I kind of left those for the final step. So I'm working from an edited third draft, and I still need to do what's called the final scripting of all the speech bubbles and all that. So there's going to be still some writing involved at the final step.
Very interesting.
And it terrifies me.
To choose the right words. I can imagine it's probably like much more critical to be well versed in prose because you're only going to have so much to to say, so you got to choose the appropriate words.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And then again, I mean, you can do a comic theoretically with no words. Like there's a famous G.I. Joe comic with Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow duel it out. And Larry Hama wrote the whole book without any dialogue lines as a kind of concept piece. So the pictures tell a lot of the story as well. One thing I wanted to make sure is that you could look at the pages and know what's happening. That's always very important. Because if you need to rely on the speech bubbles, and sometimes you do, but then the speech bubbles become much more important and critical to following the story.
Well, that was the one thing sorry.
Go ahead, Machi. No.
That was the one thing my bad. That was the one thing I hated about a lot of the newer comics past 2012, between 2012 2016, before they took a complete nosedive. They were so full of wording they didn't rely on the art.
Yeah. And it's hard. I mean, I know it because the short story I published in Anvil, I put more words than I usually do to try to cram the whole back storyline and everything. But it comes at a high cost. So I'm going to try to play this one sparse with little words and a lot of meaning in them, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. You always enjoy your comic books with more images than words. With that said, we got our own RH Snow in the chat joining us. She's a little under the weather. Why she couldn't make it on today. Hopefully she'll be with us next week, though. Good to see you, Snow. Says she has the plague. Snow has the plague.
Yeah, that goes away after a couple of days, I think.
Yeah, that's what I heard anyways. Never heard of anyone dying of the plague.
No.
Not me personally. No, not at all. So Maji, you said you're halfway done with your novel at this point, your epic journey, editing wise, correct?
Well, kind of. So what it is because I'm doing the coaching. Daniel and I are going through it chapter by chapter, and then he's going to have me take about a month or two break, and then I go through it one last time by myself, see if there's any serious need for changes. Then I give it to him to do the editorial.
Okay.
Once I give it to him, it's finalized.
Sounds like a wicked process.
It is, but I get why. Basically, we're going through it now, and then, like I said, he wants me to take a month off and then go through it again, because I'm even noticing why he wants me to do that. Is because with each lesson, I'm getting better at either describing or recognizing, oh, hey, this is telling, not showing, or just little nitbits here and there, because he's focusing on trying to basically train me to be a writer. Not so much, I mean, yes, we are working on the story a little bit, but it's more getting me in that mindset. So once we're done doing the coaching all the way through, like I said, he's going to turn me loose to see if I notice any major fixes that need to be done once we're done, and any changes, like, say conversation's not right or something. And then once I'm completely done that last time, then I hand him the final time, and he becomes the hardcore editor and not the teacher.
Okay, so it's a bit of a he's ironing you into a writer. You're gonna continue your writer's journey after this? Have you thought about that at all?
Um, I haven't, but in all honesty, like I said, this is about as intense as one of my college classes, so I might.
It might be worth it. Who knows how well that first one's gonna drop. To get yourself a little fan base going. And once you do, they have a tendency to ask for sequels.
I'm not even sure about the fan base at this point. This is more just it was started as a joke for the channel, just to kind of be a little fun. But at this point, it's not only been a growth process for me, but it's just been fun, and it includes a bunch of people that I've hung out with for over a year and that we've gotten to kind of know and BS around. So it's just more of a passion project than anything now.
I hear you. I mean, you got to have passion if you're going to blow up a short story into a novel of that size. Because you hit 40,000 words, people call it like a novel, but you're working on 70,000 now, correct? Is it 70,000?
Yeah, about, like I said, we won't know the final word count, but it's just been fun.
That's
I
good.
mean,
It's always good to enjoy that process.
Wrangler's got an inspired character in there. We got Royce, an inspired character. Kahuna has an inspired character. There's a freaking talking otter. I wonder where that one came from. It's just like I said, it wasn't supposed to be what it turned into, but I just kind of like the idea of the hero's journey after the prologue happened, and it just evolved from there.
Well, definitely looks like you got R.H. Snow singing your praises.
She read the alpha. She was one of my original betas, but she read the alpha, and then now I'm going through with Daniel. So
That's good. That's good. Have you thought about marketing at all? Like, I know it's a passion project, but you are going to put out a physical copy, right? Like,
yeah, no,
probably.
so what it was originally part of it. It was supposed to be part of an anthology with other people, and I think you were in on it too, weren't you?
I think I was there for the conversation, but I knew I did not have the time to
Okay.
partake.
So yeah, it was originally an anthology. So Snow, Otter, you were there. Wrangler, Billy Bob was the one who dragged us all into it because it was started off as a joke from Kikomon. But it was originally supposed to be a bunch of short stories put together to make into a book just to troll Royce. But I kind of blew that short story away. So I think because Snow has a whole entire epic poem made for this, as well as pictures. And I know Wrangler has something too. So I don't know if there's going to be two separate books, like my book and theirs, or if we're combining them all. I don't know what the end project's going to be, but after almost a year and a half of working on this and all the coaching lessons and all the time and effort we put into it, I am definitely releasing it one way or another. So there will be a physical version, because a year and a half of my life has gone to this project.
Definitely, definitely. And I would advise to think about some kind of marketing campaign along the way, because you've put that much time into it. You might as well try to get as much bang for your buck out of it.
Yeah. Like I said, I still got to coordinate with the others if they even still want to do it. But How much? I mean, between Gino, King Bob, it depends on how you know him because he goes by both. Between how much time King Bob has put in as well as Daniel, I would have wasted their time if I don't release it at this point.
Well, that's definitely some good motivation to get it done. But by the way, it sounds like you're probably. I know you still got quite the journey in front of you, but you got a lot of ground covered already, so you've come pretty far.
Thanks. Yeah. Shoot. Even Black Knight was one of the betas. He sent me an entire PDF file full of notes that I actually have saved on my home screen, and that I'll go over after I've gone over with coaching with Daniel, and when I'm making changes.
Definitely singing your praises in the chat. That's for sure.
But so yeah, like I said, I'm not sure if we're doing a big anthology because the moment my book crossed the 40K mark, I knew I blew the anthology thing out the window because I mean we're already looking at 70 to 80,000 words, and that's a little chunker. We add everybody else's, it's going to be a big one, but I'm willing to do it.
Yeah.
I just don't know how
Maybe
we're going to do it.
Just put like the first chapter in there as a tease for the book.
Maybe. I'm not sure what the next step will be, but because I still got a lot of time before I'm ready, I'm not pushing it because I think Otter might have something too. I'm not sure. He did.
Yeah, I
He had
remember
a
that
rough draft at
conversation.
least.
I
Yeah.
remember that conversation. I don't know how much how much people went through with it, but they a lot of times, even when people say I'm just going to write something small, the process of getting it out there, it always seems to be more difficult than people imagine it being. I know it was for me. It sounds like it's the entire process is a journey for you over there, Maji. But Frederick, how's the process of getting a comic book out? Because you are producing your own comic book as is.
Yeah.
You got a page right there to show us. What's that process like for you?
Well, I've already drawn comics in the past, so the drawing part I'm used to. The writing is new to me, and the going to production. So I emailed a printer that I heard about on Comic Book Radio. So, or was it another show? I heard the name drop somewhere, and I went to check it out, and it's a printer in Canada, and turns out they print the books of for Image. So I found a legit printer I could use, and now I have to figure out all the steps in between. It's not too much of a hassle. I got a lot of information about lettering from a book. So lettering has a lot of little gotchas, which you can mostly, like 80% of the problems you can solve by finding a good font, because you have like comic book specific fonts that fix little details, like the eyes having like being capped off in the right place and not being capped off when they're in a word and stuff like that. And then you got multiple drawing. I'm kind of getting sidetracked into the lettering, but basically I kind of figure it out all the different problems along the line until I get to the printer and distribution after that. And I haven't solved all of them yet. So I have still questions about the distribution. I still have like questions about the coloring and the printing, because from what I understand, you color in RGB, but you print in CMYK. So you need to do like a conversion at some point, and you don't want the ink to get saturated on the printer. So there's a few things that are not obvious that when you don't know about, you kind of want to know about. So I know about them, but I don't know how to solve them yet. So that's going to be fun. And also I'm just starting work on prepping the campaign for this. So in a way, I have to know beforehand what everything's going to cost, how it's going to be handled, as well as create other perks for the campaigns like bookmarks, cards, fun little stuff. So yeah, it's a big puzzle. It's a big puzzle. You got to collect information. You got to talk to people. Luckily, we probably lived in the best time to do this, honestly, because everyone who's doing it has their own podcast talking about how they're doing it, like we are now. And so you can get a lot of information. People, I think, are quite approachable in this space where if you have a question, you can generally, hit someone up and ask the question. Most people are helpful. And but yeah, at the same time, it's kind of terrifying to think of all the hoops you got to get through all to the end to have these books. And I'm printing them on an offset printer, so it's not an on-demand thing. So I have to get like minimum quantities, manage the shipping, and I think the printer can manage a little bit of that. I need to get some info to validate that. But then yeah, you got to ship it. I live in Canada, and shipping from Canada is like not a good. So I have to figure out, okay, do I ship them myself or do I like hire a warehouse somewhere, a shipping service? So I got to figure all these things out. Um, and you got to do that while you're doing the creative stuff as well. So it's kind of a mix. Like I really envy people who can focus just on the art or just on the drawing or just on the writing, because it is extra work to be juggling all these tasks at the same time. But I think it's going to be rewarding, to be honest, to be able to create your own story the way you want to make it and make it from start to finish. It's a big task, but I think it's going to be very rewarding at the end. And yeah, got a lot of people who are looking forward to the book, so that's my motivation there. And but it's thrilling. It's thrilling because got some unknowns in there and got to figure all those out as well. So who knows how it's going to turn out? Hopefully, it's going to be great.
Definitely. People don't think about the administrative side of creativity, but just about every aspect within the process has been monetized by somebody, or a service needs to be looked at, particularly when you're looking at print. That's one of the reasons why I'm always so hesitant at approaching, the idea of printing any of my short stories. I know it would be cool, but when you just release it digitally, you bypass so much. You can just slap it out there on the internet with a price for people to look at digitally, or just like I do for Substack, without a price, and just let it breathe. Just go out there. Compared to print, which is super cool to have that physical copy in your hand, and people love it. I think it's every writer's dream to have like a best-selling something or other, and they would rather have a best-selling physical copy than digital copy, I think. But man, the loops, the hoops throughout it all, like just the writing process or the artistic process, and then the printing process, they're completely different beasts that you have to tackle, and it can get ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's not even best selling. Like, I'm pretty sure I have spent way more money on this thing than it will ever make. But I want the physical copy, because then I could say, you know what, I have done my part in this culture war. I went and wrote a better story than the shit I've seen on TV.
And there's a lot of shit on TV these days. That is for sure. Does any of that actually fuel you to keep going? Is any of that used for fuel?
Well, for me, it was the spark that started it. Like I remember walking into a comic book shop. I hadn't been in a long time, and I saw a beautiful looking book about James Bond, and I was like, "Oh, that's great! I love James Bond. Let me grab that. It's gonna be." And the book, the binding was perfect. It had a nice little, what do you call it, like cloth bookmark. It was just looked incredible. So I bought it, I read it, and it was full of stupid modern stuff. Like James Bond department didn't have money anymore, so they had plastic chairs in a cafeteria. It made no sense for the Secret Service. Like it's so stupid. And I thought it was so bad for a book that looks so good, that exactly what Maji said. It's like, yeah, I could do something better than this. I can at least have a crack at it, and I'm pretty sure I can do something that's going to be, entertaining and at least a contender.
Definitely.
Well,
How about you, Mark?
I told you I had those 2 chapters that I absolutely dreaded reading. Like, if I dreaded reading, I know the audience dreaded reading. But I was reading it, and like I said, I'm like, this sounds like a Star Wars episode, and not in a good way. I even told Daniel that, and he's like, well, let's fix that.
Yeah. There's plenty of examples of what not to do today and what to compare it to. And unfortunately, a lot of those examples are what's being made and distributed by some of the most influential companies in entertainment. It's actually pretty ridiculous. But at the same time, I'm actually almost a little happy. I don't want to say happy, but I see a window of opportunity open in the industry for those who otherwise may not have ever had a chance without going through these industrial hoops and kowtowing and bowing down and giving up creativity to those with the money to help produce it. I see kind of like that window opening, and and as Hollywood slowly starts to fix itself, I think they gave us like a good 5 to 6 years to make our mark.
Oh, absolutely, 100% agreed. It feels like to compare like market talk, like it feels like we hit the bottom, like
No,
culturally, creatively, like we're like so it's kind of a good place to come in and start building again. It's a good spot to come in and start the next wave. I think there's a really window of opportunity.
it's still going down. They haven't hit the bottom yet. The last 2 days have proved that.
What released in the last 2 days?
Not what released, but all the crap that's happened politically and in the media.
Oh yeah, that in the last 2 days, definitely.
I
Regarding
don't want to
that,
talk politics, but
right?
Hollywood's not done yet.
That's true. I think, because this is an election season and they seem to love to hate a certain political candidate. And I think, yeah, maybe I'll extend that window to roughly 10 more years before they start to really shape themselves up. I know some of them kind of are. But I think there's going to be too much of a temptation for them for the next handful of years to fully pull back and return to the ways of old, or I wouldn't even say the ways of old, because after wokeness kind of came about, I've become in my own way a bit more sensitive to the to the content they put before us, and I've noticed that I go and I consume old content and I see a reminiscence of wokeness in them. It's like, oh, you remind me of this or that, and I think is like, what they're actually doing with this wokeness is they're making people more sensitive to these topics that we kind of want to approach them less and explore them less than
Yeah.
more so, like they're trying to do. It's almost like it's backfiring on them because I guess it's one thing to try to put a message in a piece of media. It's another thing to make the message the entirety of the media, and everyone's pretty sick of it.
100%. Yeah.
Well, shoot. I mean, okay, what was it? I think it was Bad Boys. It might have been Bad Boys. I was watching a show the other day and I'm like, oh boy, this is a diverse movie. I would have not thought of that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I just would have gone,
Exactly.
this is a funny ass movie. I'm going to watch it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I used to overlook a lot of that stuff, but now it's like I've become super sensitive to it because when you see a little bit, you tend to see a lot more. So, and
But that's what they've
Definitely.
done. They've created a division.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know what to say other than we are where we are. They definitely help stoke fires to produce division, but through it all, it technically also inspired all of us to end up right here with all these different projects. So I think as long as our projects keep going, they can keep producing whatever they want. I think we'll be all right because the more they produce, the more eyes want to look for us rather than them.
And that's the thing about the story I wrote. One of the things that drew me into Royce's channel was his call to write kids content. My story is not kids content, but I wrote it for all ages. I intentionally wrote it in a way that all ages could read it.
yeah,
And that was what drove me to Royce's channel was that call of we need more for the next gen.
That's so true because even amongst like content that people do seem to enjoy, a lot of it seems to be much more cynical, much more adult oriented. And it's almost just like it feels like the kids who used to watch Fox Kids grew up and now they want to want to make all this super duper edgy crap that contradicts the stuff they grew up with in the past.
But it seems like we're all edged out. I think we see a lot of the same things rehashed, and there's no depth to it or anything. Like there's a lack of sincere stories that come from the heart. I think that's what we need
Yeah,
more.
it's true. Indeed. You know, you don't really get your heroic stories too much anymore. Everything is very urbanized in a lot of degrees. Like everything seems to take place in the city or around the city, or have a lot of, I guess, a lot of modern BS thrown in it. Especially Star Wars, I think, is one of the grandest examples. You brought that up, Maji. Star Wars has become modernized. It's supposed to be, you know, a fictional tale set a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and it's reminding me of whatever political BS is in the news today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Doesn't even feel like
Yeah.
Star Wars anymore. Yeah.
Well, I'm sick of Star Wars. I don't know how they did it, but somehow, by some means, they completely taken a franchise, I'm literally just sick of anything Star Wars. I don't even want to look at anything Star
Yeah.
Wars.
And it's not an easy thing to do. Like to take, arguably
Yeah.
the best franchise, the best movie franchise to ever come out of Hollywood, and to sink that to the point where people are kind of like, oh, it's repulsed by it. They can't even put out movies anymore.
They can't. I know they'll try, but who knows what will happen, unfortunately.
And dude, the Acolyte, they cost $180 million.
Imagine that production. But it's depressing. But much like yourself, it was the idea of too many terrible IPs and stories that I can't even remember which one it was, but one of them just pissed me off enough that I thought, all right, I'm writing my own. And it's been a journey for myself. But I kind of keep going in the circles. Like without that woke, we wouldn't be here. With that woke, we'd be enjoying a lot of other stuff, hopefully. But I hope that this kind of window they open up shifts and changes and not only their minds, but the industry as a whole. Because I think what we're really seeing is what they've kind of always believed in for years, and now it's kind of just coming to the forefront. Less of a public persona to put out, and more of a personal persona to throw at everybody. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we're seeing them pull back already with the DEI. Like Warner is going like, stop doing DEI.
Not because they want to, though. They're going broke. They have to.
Yeah,
as soon as they get back stable, they're going to go right back to it.
Well, no, far be it from me to like attribute, like altruistic motivation to Hollywood executives, but yeah, they're kind of forced to do that. I think Disney is not pulling back yet. I think they're going to be the last ones to kind of die on the hill because they are just doubling down all the time. So
definitely seems like it. But with that, go ahead, Maj.
You know what I miss the most is media telling it like it is. None of this alleged, none of this attempted, all the soft, fluffy words, especially because I know, James, where you live and where I live, that's what they do. They fluff it up. They can't straight out and accuse somebody of doing something. They have to go around it and say they might be, but they might not be, kind of shady, iffy. What happened to news just telling news like it's supposed to be objective? I mean, free from any kind of bias and just tell it straight.
yeah, there used to be laws to protect, to force the news to have like differing viewpoints and all that, and they slowly but surely removed all of those in the past, decades. And now we're at a point where none of those safeguards exist anymore, and we're in full-blown propaganda mode.
I think much like the arts themselves, they became industrialized. You had your monopolies that kind of control it all, put up, like this is a big one that you often hear, gatekeeping. But you know, I think that's what's happening with all this industrialization, the industrialization of art, the industrialization of film, the industrialization of news media, you know, multimedia as a whole. It's all being gate kept by the a lot of the exact same big corporations, and they're the ones that have driven art into the ground across the spectrum. They couldn't have done it without working together. And you know, now here we are, the creators fighting back with our own artistic talents, and enjoying the journey along the way. Because you know, I think that's been one thing that's been at the center of this conversation as a whole, has been the well, what I thought would be an excellent first, not first, but an excellent talking point for all of us to discuss would be the editorial side of things. But as this conversation's kind of panned out, I see that the editorial side of things is very much a journey in itself for the indie author that's very intriguing to explore, compared to, I guess, the editorial journey of these big companies, that it's much more of a science now, where they're trying to shift and bend culture through their editorials and what they choose to release, thinking that they can kind of scientifically shift us like they do their art, so it feels.
Yeah,
But
that's an interesting point, because it used to be like the editorial process was also like the authority, right? Because it gets inverted in the indie space, because your editor, you're basically hiring your editor and you're choosing what you're taking and what you're letting go, but the editor can't block you in your process necessarily, right? It's a voluntary process. Whereas in the olden days, your editor was your boss, you know, and your editor was saying, no, this doesn't pass, or you got to have this or that. It's but I guess it's a
yeah,
trade-off too, because you have to make sure that you take the right choices, and sometimes they're hard decisions to make, like, oh yeah, you should redo this page, or you should redo that paragraph or chapter or whatever, what mind you.
yeah. Well, that's where you refine your editing process. You know, that's
Well,
the magnificent strength of mine through short storytelling, was continuously refining my editing process. Go ahead, Maji.
well, that's how Spider-Man became Spider-Man. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Stan Lee actually said this in a speech to a university. He's like, well, they wanted, my editor came to me and said I needed a new character. Well, went through the thought process, wrote Spider-Man. He took it to the editor, and the editor said that was the worst idea ever. Nobody's gonna like a kid spider. And no. And so the editor completely threw out Spider-Man. Well, at the time, Stan Lee worked as a semi-editor writer for a magazine that was dying, was being put on the shelf, you know, like going out of business. So he slipped it in. It was some sort of science magazine as a sci-fi fiction character, not a superhero, because it was the last issue, like the edition that was being made. So he knew no one would care what he did. And the editor comes busting in the room about 2 weeks later saying, about that spider kid that we all liked, was because that magazine actually sold the most copies ever for that, even though it was their last edition, because of how good the Spider-Man short was.
Yeah, everyone loves a winner.
Wow, I bet that magazine today, if you got a copy, you are a rich person.
Yeah, that's Amazing Fantasy number 14 or 15. Yeah.
Amazing, man.
Yeah, and people
Was
did
it
keep
fantasy
them.
or science? Yeah, I don't remember
Uh,
which one.
I think it's Amazing Fantasy, but
It could be something like that. I have
yeah,
the speech. I just don't remember the magazine.
yeah. And
Yeah,
there was
that's how it works. Go ahead.
Stan's wife also had something to do with it, because Stan Lee was writing the kind of cookie cutter heroes they were writing at the time, because that's what the editors were asking for. And he was kind of pissed. He was about to quit, actually. And his wife was like, well, you know, instead of just quitting, why don't you just like write that concept you had, or write that idea you had of making, you know, a vulnerable character or a younger teenager with problems and all that. Why don't you do that now? You know, instead of, you're going to quit anyway, so take a last shot at it. And that's what pushed him over to give it a go.
Exactly.
Right. Got Snow in the chat. Yeah, and as a collector of old pulps, I'm telling you, it's the ones with an interesting story. Like it doesn't matter kind of what it is if it has an interesting story, and every other issue is worth $2. That one's probably going to be worth like $200. There's so many small books like that that belong to bloated series, but this one issue was a bit of a controversy back in the day, so that one's worth 10 times as much.
Yeah.
You know what I have somewhere? It's probably in my garage in a box. Is a is a third edition of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It is literally a
Wow.
pocket manual, like little hardcover pocket book back in the old days that they used to make. I suspect that the first and second edition were the same thing. They were just supposed to be short little horror pulps for pocket reading. And yet that's still one of the more famous horror books still known now.
Do you know how
Very
old that
true.
is? That's got to be like what, 1900s?
It's a third edition, so at least I think it's about 100 years old. That's why I got it actually,
Yeah.
because it was an old little cover.
Yeah, that's great.
Wow. Where'd you
Great
get that
find.
from?
No, just a old there's on the other side of the island I live, there's an antique bookshop, and occasionally he gets some cool stuff in there.
Oh, real cool. Real cool. Yeah, I got maybe 30, 40 books collected. Various stuff.
Dude, I picked up a Conan collection this week from a used
Yeah.
bookstore. Yeah. And it's all the Marvel Conans from, I think, the 70s.
Nice.
But they're
Nice.
translated
So,
into French. They're bande dessinée format, a little bigger, black and white.
yeah,
It's gorgeous. It's going to take me a long time to read them. It's going to be fun.
very cool. Yeah, you never know when you might accidentally find something amazing when it comes to like used bookstores and stuff like that. I have found some amazing uh, finds back in the day. But one thing I didn't get to show off, you sent me some art this week that was commissioned a while ago, but it was actually quite amazing. I put it underneath some of it underneath our
Nice.
one of my little art cam here, or book cam. Definitely love this piece right here.
That one's interesting because of the costume designs, because the reference material was AI armor. So it's completely non-traditional armor, but I had to kind of make it work and make it fit. And I think it's very, very interesting designs that you don't usually see on armor there.
Definitely, and I love the detail you added to each of them because I can pinpoint out each character simply by the armor they have on.
Nice.
Yes, that's the greatness of getting yourself an amazing illustrator. And of
Thank
course
you.
the black and white. The black and white always looks amazing to me. I prefer it so much over color.
Yeah.
Um,
It has
so,
to look
yes.
great black and white before you even add the color, in my personal view.
You're gonna say something, Margie?
No, it looks great.
Oh.
Technically,
Fantastic.
Animated Moon did my my little emoji here on my, well, not emoji, but my little what do you call
Your
this thing?
character.
Avatar.
Your
Avatar, that's the word.
avatar.
Yeah, if Animated Moon did this for me, I commissioned him for a new avatar. Mine used to be a pink pony. That's actually why it's on the stream.
Nice.
Right? Yeah, I couldn't find an image for you exactly, so I found a pony. Like, I think this will do.
No,
For
it's
the
fine.
thumbnail.
The pony was, see, the pony was a commission back a few years ago, back when My Little Pony was still airing. Uh, they went to a con and actually had a convention artist custom design one for me for a
Oh,
birthday
that's
gift.
cool. That's really cool. I love stories
So
like that.
that's why I was the pony for the longest time, was because it was custom made by a friend. But no, this one is actually probably going to be on the inside page. This avatar is probably going to be on the inside page of the wherever my story ends up.
What kind of
Nice.
avatar is it anyway? Is it like a fox?
It's a dog. So
Ah, okay.
what it was Alma was my puppy. He was my pound puppy. I had him for 13 years. But I unfortunately had to put him down because of old age and cancer. However, what was cool about this was we happened to be in a path of total totality solar eclipse. And the picture I took was at the peak of the solar eclipse from my phone. Animated Moon took the picture of the eclipse, which is what this is. He matched it almost exactly where the flare was and everything that the picture was taken in, and then took another picture of my old boy and put them together because we watched the eclipse together. So it's very personal
there
to
you
me.
go. All right, got that personal touch. And here I was going to ask next, what's up with the pink pony?
Pink Pony, basically, what they did was they took my love for animals, put it on its flank. If you know the My Little Pony lore at all, they have little symbols on their butts. And so she took my two favorite colors, made it the mane and tail of the pony, and then the symbol she had designed for the flank that's sitting there. You can't tell in any of the old Avatar pictures. I wish I had it so I could show you here now, but I can't do it without turning on my camera. So if in the original picture, she's sitting there playing on a PlayStation with Pocky in her mouth. And so that's was the pony picture that she had custom made for me.
Yeah, I remember that one. Definitely remember that one. That was a fun one. And speaking
Oh
of
yeah, I
pictures,
still
let me
have
move
it.
this
It's
one.
on my wall. I just, like I said, I can't show you without turning on the camera.
Okay, so you got the physical copy then. You got the physical copy.
Yes, I have the physical commission. It's like mounted.
Nice, nice. Now this scene right now that I'm showing off it's part of the story I'm currently writing, Glimmerleaf. This scene happens somewhere amongst the story, though this sequence was part of a separate story, a short story involving that gigantic cannon right there. But this is essentially what if you've read my short story Glimmerleaf, the tiny gnomes trying to stop an assault of the undead. This would be the first handful of waves right there. I got Frederick to draw this up for me some time ago. Actually, I don't remember exactly when.
Yeah, that was last year, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think this is the first piece you did for me. In fact, I was working with a separate author at that time, but unfortunately his main language wasn't English, so there was a lot of issues in communication. And he worked on a similar piece to this, but it didn't come out as good as I wanted it to. So that's when I eventually hunted down Frederick in the wild, and I captured him. I didn't free him until he drew me this.
Let me go, free me.
All right, just bring you a bunch of
the
tools.
skeletons.
Yeah, this is amazing detail in these things, and they're really great.
Yeah, I was happy to hear that because I added the worms without talking to you about it, and you had not mentioned them. But then later you said there were a species of zombies that had these kind of like parasite worms.
Yes, infectious worms, definitely. So I was glad to see those, and I'm definitely going to get some more work done in the future. I'm really glad that the size is as large as it is, so that way.
Yeah, they're all 11 by 17 boards. Yeah.
11 by 17. Now you just got to find some frames. Now hang these up on the wall.
Yeah, I ordered some frames off of Amazon for that size, and they're not exactly that size. I don't know what went wrong with that, but yeah.
I hate it when that happens. You never really know until whatever you're, getting shows up, particularly if it's from Amazon,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always in the market for like white backboards for not comic books, but more magazines, because I order more magazines. I collect magazines and such. And even then, like, it took me about 5 to 6 tries before I found ones that actually were correct, the actual size I needed them to be. So yeah, it can be a bit ridiculous at times.
Yeah.
It must have been a little difficult to get a hold of this acrylic cover or
I found it off of Amazon. So it was one of those searches I was telling you about that it was hard to, because these are like 11 by 17 gives you a lot of erroneous results when you search on Amazon, like even if you had envelope to it, right? So I had to filter a lot of stuff and go through it. And I found these. I was looking for like the brown envelopes to ship the art in, but when I found these, I thought, oh, these might actually be a great thing to add to it. And ordered a bunch, and turned out they're great. There's even like a sticker, I think, in the back. I didn't stick it; it's still left as new.
Yeah.
But I think you can like take out a strip and seal it if that's what you want to do. But
Okay. Nice.
yeah, no, they're great because it gives you a little bit of added protection, and you feel less bad handling it as well, because you're like, what if my
Yeah.
fingers? You don't want to leave oil on the fingers of your fingers on the paper and stuff like that. So nice.
Yeah. I
Well-
mean, I was gonna hunt down something like that because I got a bunch of acrylic bags of magazine bag size for the magazines I collect.
Yeah.
So do you use hairspray or something to seal the graphite, or you just let it?
No, these are inked, so the graphite. I actually
Oh,
erase
gotcha.
everything. Yeah. I'll go over the pencil with the ink and usually erase everything that's left. So usually there's very little trace of graphite.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
looks great.
Gotcha.
I also do like pencil commissions, but haven't gotten those. People are happy to get the inked version.
Right?
Be afraid of
Definitely.
shipping the pencil.
Yeah, I could see shipping pencil being a bit of an issue.
Yeah, I mean that. Then I would put spray net. Do they still sell spray net?
I don't know,
I
man.
don't know.
That's
Hairspray?
beyond me.
But yeah, the
Hairspray, yes, but
you have a thick. So you usually use the same hairspray to fix the pencil on the page. It'll stick. It'll give you a nice finish, and
gotcha.
it
That's
won't
the
be.
tool.
I would also add it in another layer, like a plastic. But yeah,
Okay.
that's what we used to do in the old days, even with colored pastels, because pastels are just a bunch of dust. So if you pick up a pastel drawing, your hands are going to turn the color. So you need to put some hairspray on that.
That's funny. But it's always interesting when you get into like the weeds of an art style and you find some reutilized tool like that.
Yeah, man. I'm just like, I even got a new old tool today. I picked up
A
some,
new old tool.
yeah, well, it's old because it's not new to comics, but it's new to me because I've never bought these before. So sets of tone paper, basically. So just dots on transparent paper that you can cut out and paste on your comic book page, and I'll give you they're called screen tones, basically. So it gives you shades of gray. You can sometimes have what do you call it? A shift from a lighter to a darker one, gradients and all that. So there's even some that come with clouds already drawn, like clouds already whited into the gray tones. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with that. And I wanted to play around with it, but they cost a fortune. It's insane. Like it's
Really?
$30 for a pack of 4. That's Canadian, so it's probably like $25 American.
How much comes with 4?
So they're 4. You get 4 pages worth of like full gray, so you can cut out and from those 4 pages. And so if you need a big area, you're kind of using up most of your page, and you're going to need to replace it. But if you do lots of little spots, it'll last you a little bit longer. But probably going to use them on pinups or character illustrations or something to start with, to experiment. But I love to try new stuff all the time. It's good to have new pens, new pencils, new stuff to play around.
Well, that's
cool.
good, because it's safe. All of a sudden a company you're familiar with decides to stop making something, you know how to get around that with a different thing.
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, we used to actually get transparent stickers and photocopy the screen tones on top of that, but it was much cheaper. It's like if you scratch it, it would scratch off the screen tone. So I don't think it's as high quality as these are. These are from Japan. There's no way you can get these outside of Japan. You have to order them and get them delivered.
That's probably why they're so dang pricey, huh?
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's probably quality as well. That's probably the reason.
Yeah. I mean, if it's good quality, that's good at least.
Yeah, I'll have to try it out and let you know how it goes.
Right. Next
it looks
piece.
so cool.
Have you ever worked with those before?
Yeah, like I said, only the stuff I photocopied myself when I was a kid. So I'm used to cutting it out and pasting it and doing that, but it wasn't the expensive stuff. So I'm not used to the expensive stuff. So we'll see if it's that much better.
What is it made of? What is it?
Let me grab a piece here. I got some ASMR, plastic ASMR for you.
Hey, some people like that stuff.
As long as you don't start whispering in my ear.
Oh gosh. Right, find that 10-hour video.
Okay, so this is what it looks like. So it's in a protective seal, like, and you got like little instructions here. So I just got it. And you got the English ones here. No, that's legalese. Okay, so you got to place your screen with the backing in place on the drawing paper. So basically, you stick your screen tone on the page, then you apply the knife, like an X-Acto knife, around the shape. So you can see here, like you just cut along your character, and then you remove the excess. So it's really easy to cut, in other words. And it's the kind of sticky tape that you can remove without damaging the paper. So that's kind of the idea. So you stick it over everything, cut out the shape while it's sticking on there, and then you just remove the parts that you don't want from there. And the what do you call it? The rest of the little pieces, you keep them and you recycle them for smaller bits, on other pages.
Oh, okay. There you go. Little piece of or a artistic tool you don't often get to see.
No, I'm looking forward to trying it. I'll probably be able to explain it better once I've used it. This copy. So this is one big gradient, as you can see. Like it goes from dark to light. So I have. So this is a pack of 4, so $30 Canadian for these 4.
4 sheets, huh?
Yeah, I found one like that was 20% off, so that one's coming for $25, so cheap.
Nice.
So you see
there are
these,
a lot of like
these are
a lot of interesting tools like this coming from Japan, because like they got a gigantic economy that just revolves around
dude,
illustrations and stuff.
Everything I use is from Japan except the paper. All my pens.
Really?
Everything.
Yeah.
Like I'm not even joking. Like every single pen is from Japan. Like if we go to war with Japan, I'm screwed. Done. My
right. There goes all your your equipment, your tools.
Because I learned on a quill and a brush. I mean, I can technically do it, but man, I hate those. Those are like I hate having to dip it and to wash it and to, like there's a lot of maintenance that comes with those tools. So to have like modern felt pens, Japanese little brush, self-contained refillable brush pens, those are like lifesaver. See here, smaller gradients that you can cut for smaller scenes, for smaller panels, shadows on a face or something like that.
Ah, okay. Saves you some time there, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to see. Like, I don't want to try it straight on the comic to start with because I don't know what the result is going to be once it's scanned, if everything looks good. So I'm going to try on a pinup or something and play around with that. Something that's not going to be so tragic if it doesn't work out.
Definitely. That's so super cool, man. I always like seeing tools like that and getting a little behind the scenes look.
Yeah,
a
and
variety of things out there.
because it's easy to do digitally. Like I can pop in my comic in Krita and just add a shade of gray, and then there's an option to turn it into screen tone. Like it's super easy. But then it's not on the original, right? So it's kind of like a little bit of cult of the original in a sense, because it's kind of fun to have these works of art in person.
Like the physical copies, man.
Yeah,
It's
for
all
sure.
about the physical copy.
Yeah.
And the fact you're hand drawing the physical versus the digital.
Yeah, definitely. That human element always adds in extra value and even sentimental value. You know, people love it, especially in now AI art stuff. I utilize AI art in some things, but even then, whenever I think, well, I'm gonna go sell this to people, I'm gonna go hand it out. I always want it to be like handmade. Somebody had to draw it, things like that. You know, even my upcoming release, a lot of people want it to be a physical release, which I'm flirting with. Um, if I make it physical release, gonna hand out to people and stuff, I'm gonna have a lot of original art done because that's the only way. That's the only kind of art I think I'd put in a physical copy to sell to people.
Well, then my vote is on the physical copy. Then 100%.
Right? And then it's got to go through all the lovely hoops of releasing a physical product because, you know, as you know, you got to go through at least here in the U.S. so much small little steps along the way that it's ridiculous, and that's not
Yeah,
even
man.
bringing in the printers. The printing
See,
is always a pain in the ass.
that is the one thing I do appreciate about our weird little community. We got a lot of networking of people that know what the hell they're doing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yes, it helps a lot, and I think it's definitely helped sustain or help cultivate a lot of writers into better writers as they go, as well as get them introduced to illustrators and editors and things like that.
For sure. I mean, everyone benefits for improving someone along the line, you know. It's like we all
Yeah,
Well,
want
I
good
mean,
art. We all want good stories, right?
shoot, what was it? The other day, Boncher was talking about ISBs, and I'm like, what? Or ISPs or whatever. I'm like, what the hell is that? And he's like, you need multiples.
Do you mean
yeah,
ISBNs?
Yeah, those things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
it's
haven't dug into those too deeply. Like, don't think you need them for comics. Maybe graphic novels further down the line. A lot of questions like this.
Yeah, and once again, it's part of the industrialization of the printing process and getting your novel out there anywheres, especially like because you go through printing, then you need a publisher, you need to deal with the ISB, you need to some people need to send their copies, at least here in the US, to the Library of Congress, get a official copy in there and stuff like that. There's a lot that goes into even getting your book on a shelf, let alone writing the whole thing. It makes printing much more unattractive for me, but I'm definitely flirting with the idea.
Yeah, it's a bunch of headaches for sure, but I think it's kind of the holy grail at the end. You know, it's kind of the shining prize.
Right. Like, here's your novel, your book. We're gonna take 75% of every sale, but it's gonna be in the store.
Achievement unlocked.
Right. Get it out there. Get it all out there. You know, I personally can't wait for somebody to come up with a better way of getting a book in the store than right now because everything I everything I recently listed, all those reasons.
Yeah. And there's lots of competition. I think a lot of people are writing nowadays.
I was supposed to say the only way that the indies are going to even stand a chance of breaking through with a new system is to have quite a few indies break through. Period. Once that happens, people will start thinking a way that they could cash in on that and probably change the system. But until then, we're narrowed. We're limited by the bottleneck created to keep control of the system.
Yeah, you gotta have a market. You gotta have a market. That's for sure. But you want to hear a funny story? This one's actually a little old. but we touched on failing IPs, one of which is Star Wars. But I forgot which popular. I think it might have been Barnes and Noble somewhere. They had a contract with Star Wars where their brand new books have to be on display in the front, but those books don't sell any copies. And a lot of the old Star Wars does. So what they did was they took the new books and they laid them on the floor in front of the racks, and on the racks they put a bunch of old Star Wars books instead.
Wow. Yeah, that says a lot. No, I mean, you can't force these on people. Like, people don't like them. They're not going to, you know?
Yeah, and within the literary space, at least within science fiction, that's partially your competition there. It's a lot of it's the same people that are failing in cinema are failing in literature, and then you have the whole book talk thing, which I haven't dug too deep into, but it sounds like quite a mess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're seeing it's a problem in every sphere of life right now. Like, it's not isolated to anyone. See it in comics and books and movies, yeah. But I mean, it's almost an advantage in the sense that when your book is not woke, like, I see people light up like, oh yeah, okay, this is cool. This is actually kind of based, you know? So I think people do appreciate well-written stuff. Like when they've,
okay, look at the game Wukong right now. Wukong, Sony, semi-Sony backed. But nobody heard of that game until they heard that Sweet Baby Inc. was rejected, and they told Sweet Baby Inc. to go to hell, that they weren't hiring them. And then all of a sudden, Wukong is now in Steam as the most anticipated pre-order.
wow.
Yeah, that reminds me of the movie.
Kind of looks semi-boring. No, you're good. Keep going.
It reminded me of the movie Scream. It wasn't the latest Scream, like the one that released before it or something. It doesn't matter which one. But it was definitely in the era of woke. And the unfortunate thing about woke is it provides predictability, because there's certain things that they always got to have or always got to take out. And the moment that I heard they were releasing a new Scream movie, I thought, I know exactly who the killer is. And lo and behold, months later, when the movie releases, I didn't watch it. The first reviews came out, and I just guessed. It was like a premiere review thing. It was like a live stream review, and I just guessed who the killer was in the movie. And basically that's it. I'm like, yeah, it's woke.
It's a formula now. Yeah,
it is. There could only be one character who'd be the killer, because through the entire franchise, there are 3 surviving characters, 2 female and 1 male character. So who's going to be the killer? It's going to be the guy. And that's who they made the killer. And I stopped, the franchise kind of died for me. And which is kind of crazy, because I don't watch horror franchises at all. That was like the only one.
Yeah, you can't be woke and creative, because the wokeness kills the creativity going down the checklist. Yeah. Creativity has to sort of surprise you, lead you one way and then swing you the other way. And you don't know what's going to happen when you're.
Creativity allows you to take a traditional trope and add to it in a way that makes people excited. Whereas, say, wokeness, or not even wokeness, just the robotic AI Hollywood one way, it's all the same. How many times have we gone and watched a movie or a TV show and we're like, I feel like I just saw this on a different movie.
Very true. Very true. And the compromised writing. Don't get me started. I could go on forever with shows and movies that have compromised writing, because they have to protect the character, or they have to prove a point. Therefore, they can't shift or bend their story in such a way that feels natural, that they end up dumbing down the writing or ignoring clear contradictions, and just kind of like ruining it. particularly for me because I hate inconsistent writing and things. It just, it's not fun. It gets to me.
You have to go in and write something that offends no one, but then pleases no one either. It's just like, okay, this did not offend the persons that, get offended for other people, secondhand offended. And yeah,
Right.
because, the really good stuff, a lot of people won't like it. Some really great cinema is not enjoyed by a certain group of people. It's okay to have things that are controversial, and it's what makes it interesting. But this conforming to political correctness is just the death of art.
Yeah, that's true. It utilizes art to transform all pieces into various ploys of propaganda to be consumed. And all we get is nothing but a rehash of Suicide Squad kills Justice League.
Yeah.
Could be worse. It could be Assassin's Creed Shadows.
Oh, that's a funny one. That's a funny one.
Rap music.
And
totally butchering an entire culture's history in a single game, and then you're trying to rewrite the history to justify your acts, all because you needed to hit a checklist.
So
and R.H. Snow says conformity is the antithesis of
there you go. Yeah,
Yep,
well said.
that is it.
Well said. So last thing I heard about the game controversy in Japan, this game is actually based on a book, from what I understand, and the author,
sorta ish.
yeah,
So
sort of
That's
ish.
based off of Journey to the West, I imagine.
No. So what it was the main character in the game was a real person, but little is known about the guy. In fact, most Japanese scholars say he was at most a sword handler, which is basically a peasant. But they turned around, gave him the highest honor, well, second highest honor, which is a samurai. Started pushing the lore based off of a guy who claimed he was a university professor and wrote the book on him. But it turns out the guy who wrote the quote unquote book, all this research and everything about the guy, was actually kind of going in and slowly changing Wikipedia since like 2017 or something like that.
Yeah, he was writing up the history. That's scandalous.
He was changing. He was literally changing the history, and well, of course, Ubisoft and all of the Western game journos and stuff were defending, the game, saying, "No, it's real. It's real. You guys don't know what you're talking about." Well, Japan's like, "Yes, yes, we do know what we're talking about." Then Japan or Ubisoft turned around and stole art from Japanese people. Like their banners that showed up in the original trailers and in the book, the collector's edition book, were actually stolen from a rifles group in Japan that reenacts battles. And
Wow.
then they released Chinese kanji claiming it was Japanese kanji in the game. And then they turn around and their last at the convention in France, yeah, wherever Ubisoft is stationed, which I think is France, took Zero Sword from One Piece and tried to claim it as Yusuke's sword when they had it quote unquote really Sasuke, or not Sasuke, I don't know what the hell the name of the guy is from Shadows, but they tried to claim it was his when Zero has a very distinct looking sword with the hand grip in the center of the hilts.
Yeah, they bought One Piece swords and resold them as their own, basically. And they did the same with an old Japanese doll too, I believe.
Wow. I'm not surprised. There's controversy after controversy with these video game companies, kind of, at least when it comes to these items they sell, they just try to get their hands on cheap crap, peddle it for twice as much, 3 times as much as it's worth. and try to focus on their games. There's just a bunch of game designers. They're like, oh, wouldn't it be fun to sell this? Let's try to get a deal somewhere.
Well, what's even more bad about this, because they were physically trying to change Japan's history, one of the Japanese versions, they're called diets, but it's basically Japan's version of a senator, is pushing for an
Uh-huh.
investigation into this game.
Really? Under what, like, what are they investigating exactly?
I'm not entirely sure, but it's enough to trigger a whole movement because Japan's afraid their culture's being attacked.
Yeah, it's something about their
Okay.
culture being attacked through the game. So
Oh, so it might be woke and kind of like, I don't know, putting a bad light on Japan, and
well, I
they
thought it
have a
was
little bit of backbone.
I thought it was overreacting at first when I initially believed it was just the story in the game, but now that you're saying that the author is like re-editing Wikipedia, Japan's own past is being edited by a fiction author in a game company.
Yeah,
That's hardcore.
that's
These are
how it
like
happens.
this is like the present is cyberpunk punk as F, It's like
It really is.
the
Without the
fiction
flying
authors
cars.
have access to the database of our history, and they can edit our history as easily as they edit their own books.
Yeah.
Crazy
But
times in which
this isn't new. Large sums of history for uh, giant portions of time have been precedented based off of one or two pieces of literature produced by so-called historians, just to find out that they were politically active, and it was a political piece that was pushed by their political friends, and it become the official narrative of history. It's happened multiple times throughout history. So it's nothing new. But unfortunately, it's something that doesn't seem to be addressed too well. But it reaching a cultural point to where it essentially creates a movement like this is definitely something. And it would have to be an alternate country other than like the US or a much more Western country, because we seem to have such a guilt factor when it comes to our own history. It's a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yes, but with that said, we have 2 minutes until we wrap up. Everybody, I hope you've enjoyed the stream. It's definitely been a great conversation on my end. I hope the people listening in the chat, from what it looks like, it's primarily RH Snow and Wrangler. I hope you've enjoyed being a part of the conversation. I do like bringing up chats. Let's see what Wrangler says. I should take that game trailer, rescore it with a song turning Japanese, and edit in some actual Japanese folk. There you go. Do that for us.
You could probably do more. Look up on YouTube how many Japanese are rioting because of this game. Like, they hate
Rioting?
the idea of this game. Not like going out in the streets and rioting, but you can find a lot of hate for this game.
Good. I think it's appropriate for people to stand up for their culture, because the unfortunate truth is these game companies have bastardized history in so many different ways, particularly with this series. Let's be honest. The Assassin's Creed series has not been that great to history as a whole. It has been a little fast and loose with a lot of aspects.
What I find interesting about this is you actually have two different comparisons here. So 3 years ago, Sony released Ghost of Tsushima. The directors of that game were here in the US, but they went to Japan and animated an all new, unique story, everything based in the same era. But they did such a good job that Tsushima Island made them honorary ambassadors to their culture. And then you got Assassin's Creed Shadow that totally bastardized everything about Japan to the point they're putting Chinese kanji in as Japanese kanji. You have two exact opposite parallels for the exact same time period.
Yeah.
It's like putting French words on an English ship,
Right. Well, they can see them possibly doing that. Maybe not in 1400.
Yeah,
But
I mean, it happens when you don't care that much about a project. You're like, quick, okay, I need
too
this.
much. We see it too much, and I think it's something that we as authors and ourselves have to keep our eye out and using examples of what never to be when writing history, particularly when it comes to writing in particular time periods. You know, it's important to get the time period correct.
That's one thing I have with the Gladiator 2 commercial for Gladiator 2. The first movie was a timepiece movie. 100%. Everything was around that timepiece. Even the soundtrack was very operatic. Even though it was in English, it was still very operatic. It was it fit into that timepiece bubble. The second trailer doesn't match. You got modern rap music mixed in with this timepiece, which if it was written that way, it would be okay. Like Knight's Tale. Actually, Desperate brought this up. Knight's Tale, very, very, timepiecey, but there was just enough modern mixed in that the music, because of the comedy and the little bit of modernism, it all fit and blended well. It made a great medieval, just fun tale. Gladiator isn't fun. It isn't comedic. It isn't exaggerated. It is strictly a timepiece of a Roman slave.
Exactly, and they butchered it. They absolutely I'm assuming they butchered it. From the trailer, it doesn't look that good. It's literally called Gladiator 2. It sounds like a me. It's Gladiator 2. I don't know what you're thinking of. Yeah. But with that said, we're 1 minute past wrapping up the stream. No problem. I'll probably hop on Fredericks after this.
Yeah, we're gonna watch a short film I did in 2012.
Yeah. It's gonna be hilarious. Everybody head over there. But with that said, you guys, closing out, where can people find you? We'll start off with you, Baji.
I don't really go anywhere. So take a look at Drink with Crazy because he's cool. And tonight after 6 p.m., so probably after Frederick streams, Iron Seas launches an all new channel.
Oh, that's fun. Might stop by and check that out. How about you, Frederick?
What's it called? The new
I don't know the new channel, but Ultimate Kahuna. Look up Ultimate Kahuna. Will have the link to the new channel.
Oh, okay, because they were having their show on different streams. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, they were bouncing around between 3 different streams, so they decided to make a channel.
That makes sense.
So, sorry, I didn't mean to derail again.
No problem whatsoever. Where can people find you, Frederick?
imakecomics.com is a forward address that'll take you there. It's Red Tail Comic, and that's basically the site where I post the progress I'm making. You have even bar graphs of the progress I'm making on the work right now. I'm working on coloring some pages to get the campaign out, the pre-order campaign out in the next month. So that's kind of what's on the forefront of my mind these days. And yeah, check it out and follow me. I have my own YouTube channel, like I said, where I continue these art streams. And tonight we'll be watching a short film if you want to hop on and check it out. Yeah.
Super cool. We'll have you back on when your campaign's live and we'll talk about it.
Oh, for sure. Love it.
Awesome. With that said, okay, we're headed out, everybody. Have yourself a wonderful day. Thank you for stopping by. If you're watching this on the replay, leave a comment, drop a like, share it with your friends. We're out of here. Have yourself a good night.